So you step into just about any air-conditioned public space across India right now.
Mm.
Maybe an office building, you're browsing in a mall, checking into a hotel, and you probably feel it, right? A difference in the air.
Mm.
It's not just you or, maybe you're just having a hot day. There's this new baseline temperature. It's specific, 20 degrees Celsius.
That's the number.
Yeah.
20 degrees C.
Yeah.
It's now like the official minimum setting for AC in a whole lot of places.
Yeah.
It's not just a suggestion anymore. As of June 10th, 2025, it's actually a nationwide rule.
Wow. Okay. So which places exactly?
Well, it covers commercial and public buildings. So think offices, malls definitely,
Yeah.
airports, hotels, banquet halls, government buildings. Basically, anywhere the public gathers or where business happens under air conditioning.
It really feels like it just suddenly appeared. But looking through all the detailed stuff you shared with us, the research, the policy papers, different viewpoints, it's clear this has been kind of building up for a while. We really got into the weeds with the material you gave us.
Yeah, it didn't come out of nowhere. And it is complex. So our plan for this deep dive is basically to unpack all of that.
Okay.
We want to look at what the rule actually says, really get to the core of why 20 degrees specifically, explore who's feeling the pinch or the warmth, I guess, and then kind of zoom out, see the bigger picture for comfort, business, energy, climate, the whole thing.
Right. Understanding the rule and what it signals. Okay, let's start super basic then. What's the exact mandate? What do these places have to do?
It's pretty straightforward on paper. The AC in these public and commercial buildings just cannot be set below 20 degrees C.
Okay.
The thermostat has to be 20 or higher. So no more blasting it down to 18 or, even lower like some places used to. That super chilled feeling, that's out officially.
And it wasn't like a slow phase in, it just kicked in.
Yep, June 10th, 2025, that was the date. It came down from the Ministry of Power with strong backing and groundwork from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, the BE. They've been studying energy use patterns for ages.
Okay, Ministry of Power, BEE. Makes sense. So it's mandatory for businesses, public spots. What about us at home? Are AC police going to knock on doors?
No, not right now anyway.
Right.
For residential users, it's more about encouragement. It's voluntary. They're strongly urging people to set their home ACs to 20 minimum, maybe pointing out you'll save on your electricity bill, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's not legally binding like it is for a mall or an office.
Okay, clear distinction. Mandatory versus recommended. But yeah, the big question everyone's asking, why that number? Why 20? Seems so specific. What's the logic, the science behind it?
Well, the government's stated reasons boil down to two main things: boosting energy efficiency in a big way, and contributing to tackling climate change. AC is just a massive energy drain, especially somewhere like India.
Oh yeah, you feel that in summer. It's not really a luxury, is it? It's often essential.
Exactly. And that's why it's such a huge slice of the energy demand pie.
Yeah.
Now, the science they point to in the materials is quite interesting. Studies, especially from the DRE, indicate that for every single degree Celsius, you raise the AC temp. You save about 6% of the energy that AC unit uses.
6% just for 1 degree. That's actually quite a lot.
It really is.
Yeah.
So think about a place that used to keep it at, say, 18 degrees C. Now they have to go to 20 degrees C minimum. That 2-degree jump. That could mean energy savings of around 12% just for that one unit.
Right.
Now multiply that by, millions of commercial ACs running all day. The potential savings become enormous.
Okay, the savings definitely add up fast. But if going higher saves energy, why stop at 20? Why not push it to 22 or even 24? Wouldn't that save even more?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the justification given for 20 degrees C is that it's supposed to be a balance point.
A balance.
Yeah. The research they cite generally puts the human comfort zone between 20 degrees C and 24 degrees C. So 20 is right at the very bottom edge of what's typically considered comfortable. The idea is to get significant energy savings compared to 18 degrees, but keep it just cool enough for most people to function, reasonably comfortably.
So they're trying to thread a needle there between saving power and keeping people from melting down.
Pretty much. And it's fascinating when you look at other countries, which the material does touch on. You've got Japan with its cool biz thing, encouraging offices to set ACs way up at 28 degrees C.
28. In Japan, wow, that feels like a whole different world compared to 20.
Massive difference, yeah. Other places like South Korea, Singapore, they often aim for around 25 degrees C. Even the EU suggested higher temps during their recent energy crunch.
Right.
Japan's 28 probably works for them because of, I don't know, maybe lower humidity sometimes, different dress codes, maybe just different cultural expectations about indoor coldness. But trying to enforce 28 degrees C across India, Yeah, with the heat in many places and that real cultural thing of expecting icy relief indoors, you'd likely get huge pushback.
Asking someone in Delhi or Mumbai in May to be happy at 28 indoors. Yeah, that sounds tough.
Exactly. So 20 degrees C seems like the government and BEE's calculated bet. It's maybe the highest minimum they think they can realistically implement across the board without causing, total chaos while still achieving those crucial energy savings.
And it's not just about comfort or bills, it connects to bigger goals.
Definitely. It's explicitly linked to India's major climate commitments. Remember the COP26 pledge, net zero carbon by 2070.
Right, that big one.
Every unit of electricity saved helps chip away at that. And since something like 70% of India's power still comes from coal, saving electricity directly means less coal burned. It's a climate action, fundamentally.
Okay, so it's calculated, it's linked to national goals. Who are the main players pushing this? Who's actually driving it?
Well, as we said, it's the Ministry of Power, currently headed by Union Minister Manohar Lal Khattar, and the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, the BE. The B has been the engine behind efficiency standards for years. The star ratings on appliances, LED bulb pushes.
Yeah, I know the star rating.
This AC rule feels like a significant step up in their efforts, more direct intervention.
And how do they actually make sure places are following the rule? Malls, offices, hotels. Seems like a massive job to check everywhere.
It absolutely is a huge enforcement challenge. For these commercial spots, the plan involves monitoring, mostly through inspections.
Inspections, like people showing up with thermometers.
Potentially, yeah. And the material mentions penalties for noncompliance. Could be fines, or interestingly, it mentions stern letters from government officials.
A stern letter, huh? Does that actually work?
Well, for businesses, the bureaucratic hassle and potential negative attention might be a deterrent in itself. But they're also looking ahead, beyond just checking up on people. They're encouraging AC manufacturers to actually design new models where the temperature setting is locked. Like physically or digitally, you just can't set it below 20 degrees C.
Build it into the machine itself. Clever.
Exactly. As older units get replaced over time, compliance becomes less about behavior and more about the tech limitations.
Still, it definitely feels like a very, very direct government hand reaching into how businesses run things, even how cool a room feels.
Oh, absolutely. That perception is strong. For some, it's a necessary, bold move to tackle a genuine crisis energy demand, climate change that voluntary steps just haven't fixed.
Right.
But for others, yeah, it definitely crosses a line. Feels like overreach. We saw terms like thermostat tyranny being thrown around.
Thermostat tyranny. Wow.
Yeah, and that analysis of the material about the government telling you how spicy your biryani can be,
Yeah.
that really nails the feeling some people have, like it's just too much interference in personal or business choices.
Yeah, those phrases stick. Okay, let's talk impact. Who feels this change the most? Comfort-wise, money-wise?
It hits a lot of people, but differently. Take the average person, the common man, like that example of Rajesh from Rohini who loved his AC at 18 degrees.
Right.
For people like him, walking into a mall or office that used to be freezing and is now just coolish at 20 degrees C, that might feel like a real loss of comfort. Almost like the government is messing with how your body feels.
That 2-degree difference, 18 to 20, it actually does feel pretty noticeable, especially coming in from that intense Indian heat.
It really does. But, there's a potential upside for individuals too, maybe indirectly.
Like what?
Well, if businesses cut their energy use significantly, it could maybe ease the pressure on the electricity grid. So in places that suffer from frequent power cuts,
Oh, yeah. That would be huge.
a more stable power supply could be a really welcome side effect, even if it's not the direct goal for the individual user.
That's a massive benefit for millions. Okay, what about the businesses themselves? They're the ones who have to comply. How's it landing with them?
It's definitely a mixed bag for them. Places like malls, big offices, hotels, it's tricky. On one side, customer comfort is key to their business.
Sure.
You mentioned malls in Gurgaon. Wanting people to hang out and shop a cold environment was part of attracting them. Luxury hotels, like the Taj example, sell an experience where perfect climate control is expected, a mandated 20 degrees C minimum. That might feel like it compromises that experience or that luxury image.
For a lot of people, luxury AC means really cold AC.
Oh, exactly that. But then the flip side is potentially massive cost savings. AC can be like up to 50% of a big commercial building's power bill.
50%. Wow.
Yeah. So bumping the temp up from 18 to 20 could slash those huge energy costs significantly. So businesses are weighing those potential savings against that possible hit to customer perception or comfort.
And will those savings get passed on to customers? That's another question.
That is absolutely another question. No guarantee there.
And the main reason for all this, the environment. What are the projected benefits there?
That's the core driver, officially. Reducing the carbon footprint from cooling. The BEE's numbers are pretty impressive. They estimate this rule could save around 20 billion units of electricity every year.
20 billion units. That's hard to even picture. How can we understand that scale?
Yeah, it's a huge number. The material gives a good comparison. Saving 20 billion units is roughly equivalent to taking about 1 million cars off the road in terms of the carbon emissions avoided.
1 million cars. Okay, that helps visualize it. That's substantial.
It really is. And again, given India's reliance on coal power, every unit saved has a direct impact on emissions. It's a concrete step towards those climate goals.
Huge potential upside for the environment, potential savings for businesses. But obviously, like any big policy shift, there have got to be challenges, criticisms. What are the main roadblocks or points of friction?
Well, we talked about the government overreach angle. That's a big one. The feeling of thermostat tyranny, intrusion into private or business affairs.
Micromanagement, yeah.
Then there are just the practical hurdles. How do you realistically enforce this everywhere? Will there really be, as someone put it, an army of AC police? The sheer scale makes consistent enforcement look really difficult and probably expensive.
And what about places where the power grid is already shaky?
Exactly. How does a rule about setting your AC higher land in a place that has power cuts for hours every day anyway? It can seem a bit disconnected from the daily reality for some people, adds complexity, maybe even feels irrelevant there.
There's also a fairness question, right? Does it affect everyone the same way?
That's a really important critique. The argument is that it might hit smaller businesses harder, those operating on tighter margins, or maybe middle-class households if it eventually extends there.
How so?
Well, wealthier individuals or big corporations might have more ways to cope. Maybe they have buildings with better insulation, newer ACs that feel cooler at 20, or they can just absorb any perceived drop in comfort more easily. Smaller players might have fewer options.
Makes sense. And then there's the chance people just work around it.
Yeah, that leads to the rebound effect idea. If people genuinely feel too warm at 20 degrees C, maybe they'll just run fans constantly or buy those little portable coolers, right? Which could end up using more energy overall, canceling out the AC savings.
Right, and this is where that famous Indian ingenuity comes in, the jugaad factor.
Absolutely. The material specifically brings up jugaad, that knack for creative, maybe slightly rule-bending workarounds. If people feel pushed by this rule, you can bet someone somewhere is trying to figure out a hack.
Like how to fool the thermostat.
Exactly. We saw mentions of people online discussing potential jugaad, trying to figure out how to trick the AC sensors, or that really vivid one about wrapping a wet towel around the outdoor unit to try and boost the cooling.
A wet towel. Wow, that's creative. But if everyone starts doing stuff like that, doesn't it just defeat the whole purpose of the energy saving?
It absolutely could, yeah. Widespread jugaad to force temps below 20 would directly undermine the efficiency goals. But that push for manufacturers to build ACs with locked settings, that's partly an attempt to get ahead of the jugaad game long term. It's like a tech versus ingenuity race.
A cat and mouse game, yeah. And looking globally again, India's 20 degrees C minimum really does seem stricter than Japan's 28 degrees C or Singapore's 25 degrees C approach.
It does. India is mandating a minimum that's right at the bottom of that comfort range. It really highlights how serious the energy challenge is perceived to be in India, and maybe the feeling that only decisive action will work. It's a contrast, isn't it? India is setting a strict floor, while some places like the U.S. are known for offices being so cold people need blankets.
It's a weird global spectrum of indoor climates.
It really is. India's 20 degrees C rule feels like it's planting a flag. Energy conservation is the priority, pushed right up to the edge of what's considered minimally comfortable for the climate and culture.
And zooming out even more, this rule isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a much bigger energy picture for India, right?
Oh, completely. You have to see it against the backdrop of India's absolutely massive growth in energy demand. It's projected to double by 2030.
Double.
And a huge chunk of that growth, air conditioning. There are already over 300 million AC units out there, and sales are booming, growing 10–15% every single year.
That growth rate is just mind-boggling.
It's enormous. And with the grid still so reliant on coal, managing that demand surge is critical both to keep the lights on and to hit those climate targets. So this 20 degrees C rule, it's one key piece of a much larger strategy from the government and BEE.
What else is in that strategy?
Well, it complements things like the BEE star rating program, pushing people to buy more efficient ACs in the first place, and of course the massive push for renewable energy like solar and wind. It's about tackling demand and changing the supply.
So it's a coordinated approach, not just telling people to turn up the thermostat.
Exactly. And the material suggests this might just be step one. There are hints about maybe expanding the rule, perhaps with incentives, maybe eventually mandatorily to homes down the line, plus a big push for smarter tech,
Smart tech?
like IoT-enabled ACs. Yeah. Units that can adjust based on whether someone's in the room or what the weather's like outside, optimizing cooling automatically.
ACs that know you left. The future is here.
Or ACs that communicate with the building's whole energy system. And it's not just about the AC units themselves. There's renewed interest in combining this with better building design, green building codes, better insulation, even reviving traditional passive cooling methods like jolly screens or rooftop gardens, ways to reduce the need for so much AC to begin with.
That mix of old wisdom and new tech sounds promising, but ultimately, for this 20 C rule right now, its success seems to boil down to two main things.
Absolutely. First, practical enforcement. Does it actually happen consistently in all those commercial spaces? That's key. But maybe even more important is public acceptance, called buy-in.
Buy-in.
Yeah. Do people understand why it's happening? Do they see it as a necessary collective sacrifice for energy security for the climate? If so, compliance might be higher. If it's widely seen as just an uncomfortable top-down order, well, then you get more resistance, more jugaad, and the whole goal gets harder to achieve.
So wrapping this all up, looking back at everything we've covered from your material, this 20 C AC rule in India is way, way more than just changing a number on a dial.
Oh, much more. It's a really bold policy, maybe uncomfortable for many, but it's trying to perform this incredibly delicate balancing act, juggling personal comfort, business realities against these huge national energy needs and global climate responsibilities.
It really feels like a major test case, doesn't it? A test of how a huge, diverse country responds when the government imposes a significant environmental mandate from the top down. How much comfort are people, our businesses, willing to trade for a collective long-term goal?
And that really leaves you, the listener, with something to think about, doesn't it? As our world keeps warming, as energy demands keep rising everywhere, how much are we, individually and as societies, prepared to adjust our expectations of what comfortable means indoors? And when faced with these big challenges that seem to need large-scale action, how do our own choices, whether we comply, whether we find those clever workarounds, or whether we just push back, how do those individual responses actually add up and shape whether these big policies succeed or fail? It's a fundamental question about how we stay cool on a warming planet, and India's 20 C rule is forcing millions to confront it right now every time they walk inside.